Hi everyone, we're back. Welcome to Overtime Live, sponsored by F9 Analytics. I'm here with the Inside the Box Rethinking Space panel. We're going to introduce ourselves going down to my left.
Sure. Hi, my name is Liz Burow. I am the Director of Strategy and Discovery at HLW International. We're an architecture interior design firm, globally located but headquartered in New York. We do a lot of tech work and finance work and broadcast work. Some of our major clients are Google, Twitter, HP, SAP, YouTube. So we're really happy to have been invited. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm David Mandell, CEO and founder of Pivot Desk, and the problem is real estate is static and businesses are dynamic. And what we provide is an office sharing marketplace that helps companies grow their office the same way they grow their business. So if you're a small company and you want to bet your company on a 5-year lease yet, we find you a great place to work by matching up with companies that have extra space. And if you're a company that's about to take a big lease and you're definitely going to take more space than you need right now, we give you a great way to mitigate that lease risk by sharing that space with another company until you need your space and then you get it back.
Very cool. Love Pivot Desk.
Yeah, I'm Jeff from IdeaPaint. We created a paint that goes on any smooth surface you want and turns it into a dry erase writing surface, just like your whiteboard. Paint floor to ceiling, wall to wall, make the whole office, conference room, classroom, whatever you want, dry erasable. We're actively distributed in 45 countries around the world, and happy to call many of the world's most innovative and creative companies our long-standing customers.
The workplace has changed dramatically over, let's say, the last 10 years. What are some of those changes and those influences that are causing that? Let's start right here with you, Liz.
Okay. So I think there's a couple of things. The first is there's a real emergence of the creative class, and they're becoming really important to the success of businesses, and they drive a lot of technology teams. But with that comes the idea of teamwork. So everyone's talking about teamwork today, and the kinds of collaboration spaces and creating the kinds of environments that foster community and foster teamwork, either physically or virtually.
Yeah, so I would add to what Liz said. I completely agree, but I think from our perspective, the two big drivers are unpredictability and diversity, right? So if you look at most of the businesses that are driving the economy right now, emerging growth businesses, they have no way of predicting how big they're going to be 5 years from now, even 5 months from now, right? And some of them go from 10 people to 50 people to 100 people, back down to 20 people, all over the course of what a normal lease term would be, right? And so the unpredictability is just dominant. And you need to find solutions both from your space and your design that allow you to manage your business in a very unpredictable environment.
Right. Jeff?
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen over the years with a lot of our customers, especially the large multinationals, is the just drive for collaborative, creative office environments, flexible space, and then also a relatively personalized workspace, not in terms of private offices, but in terms of flexible solutions for both private offices, collaboration spaces, and then fully public work environments. And I think it's a fascinating trend because it's also kind of layered with rising real estate cost and the drive for space utilization. So there's a lot of different factors that are playing into space design these days. And again, the three things that we see pretty much every one of our customers talking about is, I want to design creative collaborative work environments and utilize the space very effectively. I want to design it so that I'm servicing and enhancing the work environment for all different sets of workers, so kind of personalizing the space. And yeah.
I want to add a plug to your business, which is the idea of the value of visually thinking as part of problem solving. And I think that's something that with more emphasis on trying to draw out systems like within technology or creative businesses, there's such an importance placed on being able to visually think and do it really quickly and conveniently. Absolutely. So I think, kudos to whiteboards. Whiteboards rock.
Right. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's an interesting trend, and I obviously completely agree with you. But a lot of our major customers are some of the most tech-centric customers out there. And the idea of the analog and the digital worlds and the analog and digital spaces, there's an interesting dichotomy there where we're seeing them, there being a fight to figure out how to combine those. So, some of these, take for instance Facebook, they're a communication platform and a very digitally centric company, but at the end of the day, their ideas end up starting in the physical world. And space plays a major role in that, and obviously selfishly dry erase and IdeaPaint walls do that too. And I think it's interesting to see how space is evolving now and will continue to evolve as tech starts to come into the workplace and the role that the analog and physical world still plays.
Yeah, and I want to play off that and something you said, Dave, about the fastest growing companies, some of the biggest, they don't know what they're going to be doing in 6 months. So how much, in your opinions, how much does the space design, we talk about the fingerprint of the company and people trying to use the design to match that culture, how much does that play into, do you guys think, that growth in that business?
The one thing that's always true about creative collaborative space or workspace in general that I think we've all learned is great workspace is not one size fits all. And workspace is, as you said, the fingerprint of a company, and it is the physical incarnation of the culture that the company wants to have and their brand and what they're doing. And we've seen that workspace, great workspace, helps with retaining employees, attracting new talent, which at the end of the day is what makes a company tick. We talk about collaboration a lot, with IdeaPaint. And at the end of the day, there's a couple things that we see driving collaboration in the workspace. The first and foremost is simply just a natural human thing, which is, do I feel comfortable with the other people?
Right.
Often cited when you ask people who are the most trusted people in the workplace, it's not the CEO, it's not the executive assistant, it's not the different people who you might think. It's the people sitting by the printer, the water cooler, and the bathrooms.
Right.
And it's just because their interpersonal relationships with everybody are much stronger than others because they talk to people. And anyways, the space plays a major role in collaboration and creative thought. And a lot of it is about how we design the space to enhance communication. And then as it relates to the company culture, the space sets the tone for the culture equally as much as the CEO or the leadership team or the people within it.
And Liz, you see that playing out in some of the companies you work with?
Absolutely. I think, we talk about, of course we think space is a tremendous value to a business, but we talk about it in two different ways. We think of space as a business tool. We talk about it that way with our clients. How can this tool help your business? But every tool needs a really good craftsman, so the business needs to kind of understand how to use the space. But it's also an extension of the brand. It's a brand experience. So I think, we talk a lot about how do you create stories in your space? How do you create moments where people can kind of elaborate on what it's like to work there, and how does the space help foster culture and support the community? I think there's a big emphasis today on the idea of team camaraderie, and when we think and talk about millennials and what the millennial generation wants, they want to work for a mission-driven company, and they want to see that mission expressed in their workplace, and that's how you engage them. And engagement is far more important than measuring performance. So the more people feel connected to the company, the harder they're going to work. And so the space and the design of the space can either do that or not do that, and you can really see it, when you talk about some of the best companies to work for. Forbes just came out again, 2015. It's Google, and workplace plays a huge part in understanding the kind of mission and goals of what Google is about.
Now sorry, please.
That's okay. I was just going to comment. I think, we look at it from almost Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but from a business perspective. And we think that obviously space is a big part of communicating who you are as a business, but once you get to a level where you can afford to really invest in your brand from a space perspective, there's a lot of things that have to happen first, right? And when you're busting your ass to grow that business, and you're busting your ass to recruit someone, and you can't afford to pay them as much as a Google or a Facebook can, and you have to drive that vision around what your business is going to accomplish, the first thing you need is a space that allows you to work, right? And by allowing you to work, it doesn't have to be gorgeous space, but it has to be space that allows your culture to develop the way it needs to develop, right? So people have to want to be able to work together, right? Once you get past that initial critical need of, I just need a good place to work where I feel like we're accomplishing something, now the different niceties come in, right? And now I say, well, hey, it would be great if we could collaborate on every wall in the office, right? Or it'd be great if, I feel like this is the color of our business, and this is how we should illustrate that. Or I feel like, hey, we've got a good brand now, and our space kind of represents that brand, but now we want to reach out more to the community, and we want to offer a more flexible space to not only for our people, but also to support our community. So it's really about what stage you're at and what's that hierarchy of needs from your space perspective. And I think people get a little caught up too often talking about what the big companies do.
Right.
And that's just never a reality for a lot of businesses. So it's really more about, what do I need to do tomorrow to get my business to 3 months from now?
Right.
And how does my space enable that to happen?
And I want to follow up with that. Because we've been talking about the bigger companies. Let's talk about some of the smaller companies, which are more it's the entrepreneurs, right? It's the 1, 2, 3, 4 men shops, 4 men and women shops that
good save.
Yeah, that are starting up, and the traditional real estate, I would say, model doesn't really have a place, or hasn't traditionally had a place for them. So to your point, let's talk about, I want to say, co-working. The advent of co-working. Also, those spaces, right? Because a lot of these companies, they can't afford to do all these beautiful things, and you talk about that fingerprint. So how is co-working playing into that? The WeWorks and those out there, and they're kind of designing, beautiful spaces as if they did have the money and they were a big Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah, so I think what's going on in the co-working space is amazing to watch. And I think if you look at people like WeWork, like Grind, like District, there's a lot of great opportunities for entrepreneurs that are trying to get something going, right? I'm 1 or 2 people. I don't want to work in a coffee shop. I don't want to work in my mother's basement. I want to feel like I'm a real professional.
Right.
I need a quick, instant, flexible solution. You walk up to a place like WeWork, you slap down some money, you got a great place to work. It's a good community of people, right? But what I think is important to remember in that formula is that entrepreneurs, we tend to think of, this is what an entrepreneur looks like, right? Or this is what a tech person looks like, and this is how they work. And that's a bad stereotype, right? Because people work differently, and businesses function differently, and they have different cultures, right, and they like to run their business that way. So at some point you need to evolve into a space and an environment that is much more illustrative of what you want your culture to be. And even if you're not ready to take a lease yet, right, you want to share space with a company that has a cultural match. So you can feel like, okay, I can feel like this is actually kind of my business now. I can leave my laptop overnight. There's not an event going on here every night. I don't feel like I'm just working in a fraternity house, right? And that's really what people, I think, are missing. And the co-working craze is kind of bringing this feeling of what I call monotony, where you all look the same way, you all work the same way, you will work in a fishbowl, and you will share 12 people on one desk, and this is how And the reality is that's not how people really thrive. It's a great way to start, but when you're actually growing your business, you need a flexible solution that is much more illustrative of what you want your company to be, what you are as a person, and how your company wants to function together.
I think the other, co-working is such an interesting idea, and I think the people who want to work that way really drove and influenced the design of co-working spaces. Now what's happening is that large companies are allowing, with the idea of mobility, are allowing people to break off and use co-working spaces, again, to kind of the resurgence of I work for a very large company, but I want to feel like I'm in startup mode. So there's sort of the entrepreneur aspect, and that is borrowing co-working space, in smaller spaces to kind of go stealth and develop a new idea. So I think it's almost sort of done a 360, and it's super, super interesting.
Very interesting.
Again, this sort of we don't want to be a big whale. We want to be we want to be a school of fish kind of mentality.
Jeff, I can imagine when I walk into some of the more prominent co-working spaces like 1871 in Chicago, IdeaPaint's on the walls, because they truly get, what a collaborative tool that it is. I love it. I'm going to give you an endorsement because, people rent space. Well, you're renting floor space when you're renting space. With IdeaPaint, you can now put it on the walls. You are now renting, and your rent goes down. I look at it because you have more space, right? So, talk about co-working and sharing and all of that. Because I think a big part of co-working is not just you going and taking a desk, but it's working collaboratively with a lot of other ideas that may not even be what you're doing, but it's very inspirational. So we've had a lot of experience with co-working spaces over the history of IdeaPaint. It's been very popular within co-working, and I think it tends to relate to flexibility. And, I think, I want to build off something that you said where, great space doesn't have to be expensive space, nor does it have to be something that you put a year's worth of design effort into and build it for 7 years. And oftentimes a small and medium company or a startup doesn't have the luxury of doing that.
So within co-working spaces, how we've seen IdeaPaint utilized is they're literally painting every single wall. And it's effectively a space that is relatively move-in ready and ready to personalize. Right. And so you picture if you have a room that's going to be for 10 different people in a co-working space, you paint the entire thing with IdeaPaint, you've now utilized the floor plan to make creative, collaborative space everywhere, but then you can push the desks around and mold that space to represent the way that you want to work and your work style. And I think that's very important because nobody wants to be in the rigid constraints of anything. And especially as companies are flexing and moving up and down in terms of number of people and the job functionality that they're focused on that week, I think flexibility, especially in a co-working space or a smaller mid-sized space for a growing company, is very important.
Right. I want to continue on the 1871. I don't know if you've had a chance.
Space.
Beautiful space within that building there in Chicago. Howard Tolman, who is the CEO there, he was on this panel about a month ago, and he said the open office space is dead. Do you agree? Let's go down. And why or why not?
I don't agree at all.
Okay, don't agree. Go ahead. Why not?
Because I think anytime you say something like that, you're stereotyping culture and business and how people want to work. And I think the same person that says open office space is everything is just as wrong.
Right.
Right. And I think the key is you need to know how you want to function as a business. What are your client demands? What do your customers need? What does your internal culture need to function properly? Do I need offices? There's a lot of companies that need offices. There's a lot of companies that need open space. Right. But what you have to establish first is what is your culture? What's your value prop? What works best for you and your business and your customers? And I think it's always going to be diverse. Like I said before, we were talking about what's driving space design moving forward. And what we see at Pivot Desk is it's diversity. Different companies function differently, different cultures are different, and you can never dictate this is how you will work and this is how you will be. It's very convenient for co-working spaces to kind of say this is what it's going to be because they have to make a big bet on what they're going to build out.
Absolutely.
Right, and they have to serve a lot of different needs, and they can say this is how you should look. But the reality is we see a lot of companies coming out of co-working spaces at Pivot Desk, and we find them a space that's much more matched to their culture and how they want to function.
Right.
I would challenge the term open office.
Sure, let's talk about it.
It's sort of a word I hate because I think there's a mentality of black or white. So are you in the open or are you closed? And there's so many shades of gray.
Sure.
So, I think some companies have been slighted by the concept of open office because whoever designed their space didn't think about all the other kinds of spaces they needed. So a lot of what we do is come in and we talk about what is your culture, what is your business goal, how do you imagine yourself 10 years from now? And we calibrate both open environments with a balance of places to be more focused, to concentrate, or to have more private conversations. So it's always a balance of what you have in the open and the value of that environment, which I think is the idea of very quick face-to-face conversations, camaraderie, collaboration with the right kinds of spaces, phone rooms, huddle rooms, meeting spaces, video conferencing spaces. That has to be the right mix for the business and it has to be the right adjacencies. And so I really, I cringe when people say we don't want to go open office because it's not, it's sort of, people imagine this sort of Bloomberg atmosphere, which, no company would ever, if they're smart, would ever go 100% open office. It's a sort of a fallacy.
Yeah, I think, the mistake, I think there is a fundamental mistake with how the industry talks about open office space. And that is the fact that it's right for everybody. And open office space, just the same as private office space, just the same as any type of office space, is not right for everybody. Space design is not one size fits all. And I think building off the great points made, you have to think about how you're going to utilize a space for the people that are going to be working within it. And I don't think it'll ever totally go away. I think it'll be a portion of the office is, people want open office space for. So again, I think that the industry seems to generalize the fact, or on the rise of the open office trend, there was a generalization that this is right for everybody, and it's not.
Right.
But just the same as the fact that it's not, it also doesn't mean that it's not right for a certain segment of people.
Yeah, and let's not forget too, for almost every company, real estate is your second largest cost after headcount. So you should make that cost work as beneficially as you can for your business.
You're making your employees
right?
do that, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And if you're not taking real consideration as to what's my culture, how am I what's the right thing for me to do right now, right? And early stage, should I be burning my VC's money on a big lease? Like, that's asinine. Right? Later stage, if I need that culture to recruit and make people happy, like, you invest in it. Right, but you have to think about that cost as a value-added cost, and how are you going to make it work for you, instead of just some damn liability that you have to deal with every month that's killing your bottom line.
Right, totally agree.
But it is interesting that there has been a kind of resurgence of bringing people back to the office, where I think 10 years ago everyone was like, let's go remote, let's go mobile. And I think, kind of using some, recent companies that have really taken, I think, post-recession, been able to say, let's recheck in with how do people actually how are they productive? And I think a lot of it is about face-to-face interaction, and whether or not it's a small lease or a larger, longer lease, the value of place is incredibly important to business success. And I think it's different for every company, but real estate and physical environment is really, really key. I think companies are really realizing that.
Well, and I think, we've talked about it a couple times today, but one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is how to match office space with the stage of company that somebody is at. And you think about, a lot of the investment in terms of workspace theory and strategy and design goes into the larger office spaces, because that's where the revenue and money is.
Right.
However, quite frequently the people that need the most support are the younger groups, the 3-person shops, the 10-person company that's growing to 50. And I think it's an interesting topic for the next Disrupt, is how do you match the stage of company with what their space needs are?
I like it.
How do you grow it?
A new panel is born.
Or just to kind of close that is how do you add value to Remnant asset, right? So as you mentioned, it's usually the big companies that have the money to build out these awesome spaces, but they don't always need it all.
Right.
So how do you monetize that Remnant asset space and add benefit to companies that could use that kind of culture but can't afford to make that investment, right? And so that's obviously what we focus on, but we think that's a huge way of adding a lot of liquidity and efficiency to the marketplace, so the people that don't have access to that kind of budget can still enjoy that kind of environment.
You said, which is most, and it happens to be the tech and entrepreneur, so I fully support that. I want to end this. This has been a great session. I want to end, and Liz, we'll start with you. What gets you excited? What keeps you excited about what you're doing, whether it be a project or a new trend coming out, or an old trend that's here? What gets you excited?
I think I love what I do, and what gets me excited is every day I get to go and talk to clients. I get to talk to organizations about who they are, what they do, who their people are, and really digging in deep, really kind of rooting to their DNA, and establishing, what their culture, who they are today, where do they want to go, and developing a vision and a plan. And I think it's really exciting for me when I show them, not only have we sort of figured out qualitatively what's going on, what the metrics need to be, but quantitatively, this is what we think you need. And I think they just, people get really satisfied and excited that finally someone has listened to me and figured it out, and I feel secure in this, so that, and we have a plan, we have a strategy. I think one of the questions was, how can space fail you? And I would say the answer is if you don't have a strategy, you're screwed.
Which would you say that most people don't?
Yeah, they don't.
In general, they don't.
No.
Right?
And it's people first.
It's their second largest expense, which is quite amazing.
Yeah. Good stuff. And so that gets me super excited. And then learning about new technologies and sort of new products and new services that support people within the workplace, it makes me super excited, because I want to bring that to my clients and talk about, let's not do status quo. Let's think about something new, exciting, and different.
Yeah, and it sounds like people are much more open to it than they have been in the past.
I think so, and I think we're lucky to find clients like that who want to be challenged and really want to think about what's next.
Right.
So if I had other kinds of clients, I probably wouldn't be in this job.
Yeah, no. So the clients, that's a big thing. That's a great one.
So what gets me excited is working with great people that are building great businesses, right? And that's really why I started this business. I mean, this is my fourth startup. I don't come from the real estate side. I come from the business side. And I've just seen too many people struggling to grow a business and having to deal with the barriers that real estate throws in their way and the cost. And that is not what you should be worrying about when you're out there busting your ass trying to grow a business. It's incredibly, incredibly hard to start and grow a business. The last thing you should be worrying about is your office space.
And I'm going to go ahead and say it's not like typically the broker who might be finding you a space is actually really,
Sometimes they're a little.
Sometimes they are. Some, a lot of them are trying to do the right thing, but they have to work with a very static infrastructure. So they don't have the solutions
for the smaller people. That's
and they don't have a lot of solutions to provide. So
I think they also don't know how to answer a lot of the questions.
Yes.
And we see that startups come to us, and they want to. They're sort of shifting from kind of first tier to second tier. Okay, so now we want to establish ourselves. They ask, sort of backwards questions of like, what kind of furniture should I buy? And we're like, that's not the first question you want to ask.
They don't know and you're absolutely right.
So I think there's so many hurdles, and especially in New York, it feels like a miracle. Trying to find and build a space. There's questions around real estate, the kind of lease negotiation.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Well, it's a very overwhelming static structure. And so just to finish up what gets me excited is helping those people build great companies. And it's watching people go from a small guest company at Pivot Desk to a larger company that takes the lease and now they're a host company and expanding to new markets and just enabling that growth without having to deal with the bullshit that gets in their way. And that's really what gets me excited. And we work with some incredible companies. And oftentimes, I hate to say this, but I feel like the stupidest person in the room, right? Because we'll talk to companies that are coming in looking for space, and they're like, oh, we're working on a 3D visualization holograph technology that can change the way babies are born and help change the world. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I can find you a place to work. Yeah. And so I feel like the stupidest person in the room, but that's what's exciting to me because all these these people that are so brilliant and trying to start amazing companies, office space is the last thing they should be worrying about.
But it's the first thing
they have to deal with, and oftentimes it kills companies.
Absolutely.
So eliminating that barrier, watching amazing people grow amazing companies is really what gets me excited.
And Jeff, I want to get to you, but you're making me think it's very interesting how all of this ties into a lot of the other companies we have here, because as all of this data from all points of commercial real estate is liberated, let's call that, into the masses, you think people are going to become much more educated. Which is going to make your jobs a lot easier, and it's going to be a lot more fun. So, I'm sorry, Jeff. Let's finish with you.
So, I know I speak for everybody at IdeaPaint, but the one thing that kind of keeps us going as a company is just figuring out how to help people collaborate and be more creative and team-oriented within their spaces. And it's not an expensive proposition, and it's also very different for every company. And we're fortunate in the fact that we get to work with over 150,000 companies across the world, everything from a 2-person ad firm all the way up to the largest multinationals. And that takes a different form, and they have different challenges for every single space. And fortunately, all of them are using IdeaPaint, but we love to figure out how to help enhance collaboration throughout that. And the topic that a lot of us now within IdeaPaint are passionate about is this connection between the physical and digital worlds in terms of how that enhances collaboration. And we see a wave of technology coming at us with online collaboration platforms and so forth, which is only emphasizing the need for physical space and smartly designed physical space to help enhance those things. And then there's an interesting bridge between the two. I know you know this, but we just launched our own app yesterday called Bounce. And Bounce is specifically designed to solve the problem of, hey, I just had an awesome brainstorming session on IdeaPaint walls in a conference room. Now what do I do? And when you add friction to the collaboration process, ideas stop and ideas die.
True.
So Bounce is designed to take pictures of the walls and get that workflow into the digital world and help the teams annotate and comment on it to keep that workflow and that thought alive and continue the fluidity and momentum of that idea.
That's fantastic.
And so we're starting to embrace technologies that end up enhancing the product, our core product. And that's just the blending of the physical and digital worlds for collaboration.
Very great. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.